Okay, so clearly some of you are having some sticker shock now that you've opened your property tax bill. 2 weeks ago, I posted a video about it, this one right here, and it has taken off. A recent report from local news station WFAA stated that the overall changes in appraised value have gone up 25% for Denton County, 19% for Collin County, 18% for Tarrant County, and 13% for Dallas County. So no wonder so many people are freaking out. I have had over 80 people request comps for their home, and y'all, it is breaking my heart. So many of you never filed for your homestead exemption, and so many never knew you could protest your property assessed value or even how to do it, and you have been overpaying for years. Collin County reported that they sent over 47,000 homestead applications, but have only received 32% of them back. That is a ton of people paying more in taxes than they should, and I want to help you save money. I have received tons of questions since the video, and I've been working on getting answers to each of those folks, but thought I might share those questions and answers with you. So while I'm not an appraiser, a property tax professional, I do know real estate and I know sales comps, and I've also protested my taxes before with some success. So I want to help you as much as I can. So this is Property Tax Protest in Texas 2023, Part 2. Okay, so before we start going through the list of questions, I want to be perfectly clear on the scope of my knowledge and abilities. So just so you're aware, I cannot guarantee any results from the information I'm providing you. I am not a property tax professional, nor am I a licensed appraiser. I'm just a realtor who's happy to provide you with recent sales comps and who has been through this process, so has some personal opinions on the matter. With any questions you have, you should reach out directly to the County Appraisal District where your property is located to verify any information and opinions I'm providing. Okay, here we go. We got the questions that you guys have sent me. So I'll just go through these. And the first one is, we just purchased last year in May after the build was completed. Are we able to protest using what we paid for the house? Also, we had an appraisal done before purchasing. Could we use that? I've never protested taxes before, and I'm just wondering what I can do to lower my tax bill. Thank you in advance for any help. So great question. This actually happened to me. I bought my house as a builder spec. Next year, taxes came in higher than what I purchased for, and I did buy my house in May of that particular year before, and sure enough, they did bring my tax value back down to my purchase price. Now, at that time, the change year over year was not as substantial as a lot of people are seeing this year. And I've actually heard the same thing happen and other people do the same thing but get a different result. So what I am finding is that it seems like depending on the appraisal district, the appraisal review board, all sorts of different circumstances, two people may try the same exact thing and get two completely different results. So unfortunately, that's what I'm hearing, and I've heard a lot of stories, but these are my recommendations based on what I know and what I've seen and the feedback I've gotten, and in my opinion, never hurts to try. So yes, I would definitely go back and protest if it were me and say, hey, here's what I bought the house for. Would you please assess it at this? And if you had an appraisal that matched your closing statement or pretty close to it, or was at least below what you are currently being assessed for, then yes, I would definitely bring that as well. But one thing I want everybody to keep in mind is, according to the state property code, the Texas property code, and I've got it pulled up on my computer over here, when they're talking about appraisals and assessment, it is saying that it's all taxable property is appraised at its market value as of January 1. So one thing that an appraisal district might do is they might say, well, that was one point in time of last year. We want to get an average of multiple sales because we're trying to make that determination of January 1. So they might consider your closing price and use that in the valuation as one of the numbers to bring up to apply to the average, but they may also bring in other sales, which will then change that overall valuation. So I would definitely go ahead and protest. Definitely bring what you bought the house for and your appraisal. And then one other tip too, and I'll probably say it a few times because some people have commented on this. If your initial attempt to protest online, most appraisal districts have that initial round one where you go online and you protest. If that doesn't work, then and they decline it, you can also request a hearing in front of the appraisal review board. And then that is a time where you actually go in front of a board, you plead your case, and then they make a determination on the evidence you've provided. So that's another thing that you could do if at first you don't succeed, try again. Okay, next question. I protested last year as my square footage was wrong. We did a new build complete in 2020. The response was that the square foot includes the brick. This is odd because our floor plans list 4161 versus 4363 on the CAD site. It seems odd when I look up other houses. It seems those two match. Okay, so I did a little research on this one before I emailed this person back, because I was kind of curious about this. So first of all, a lot of times when an appraisal district gets that first, that number that they have, most folks haven't gone out and actually measured your house to see what your size is. And they're relying on builder supplied data or a permit, where when someone applies for a permit, they're going to have the property, the improvement size that they're planning to put on there. So sometimes they will just take that and put it on the assessment as what your house is. And sometimes the plans may say one thing, but what's actually built on the field is another, because you have all sorts of things that happen. So sometimes plans and actual construction don't line up one for one. So that can sometimes be a reason for a discrepancy. So I did look this up, and there was a article on the Texas Association of Realtors website, because apparently this comes up. And what they had said was an appraisal district measures the exterior dimensions outside of a home, outside of the veneer, that rounds each measurement sometime to the nearest foot before calculating the area. So if you've got each measurement and they're rounding up to the nearest foot, that can start increasing your size pretty quickly. Now, an appraiser using the American National Standards Institute process, or the ANSI, will measure the exterior dimensions of a home outside of the veneer to the nearest inch or tenth of a foot, and round only the final calculated square footage to the nearest foot. So that's how you can get a little bit of a discrepancy there. If that discrepancy exists, I would still go ahead and take it to the county and see if they would bring it down. Now, in this instance, he said that he had tried it before to no success. I would try again. You might get in front of a different board, bring the evidence, and sometimes rules change and it may be accepted this time. So when they're assessing a value and they're saying, hey, it's $175 a square foot, that little bit of size difference can really add up. So I can see the value in wanting to bring your size down if it's an accurate decrease in size. Okay, so that was that question. Next one. New home purchased 1221 for $447,000. Same model, 2023 new home comps are lower, yet 2023 assessed value is higher at $485,000. Desirability rating decreased. How to include. Okay, so we'll break this one up again. Now, remember what the Texas Property Code said was that they're trying to determine a value as of January 1. So if you bought it on 12/21 for $447,000, then kind of to that first question, absolutely, I bring my closing statement, say, hey, here's what I bought it for on 12/21. This was the value at that time. And if you had an appraisal that echoed what you purchased the house for, I would definitely bring that as well. So do that. Now, the model, so now it's a new home, because once you move into it, yours is a resale home. The new home construction is lower. Should you present that? I absolutely would. The appraisal district may kick it back and say, hey, that's something you could use on next year's assessment, since we're looking at the value as of January 1, and now we're looking at sales information of this year. But I have heard that people have protested using current market data, and the appraisal review board has considered that in the case. So I would absolutely bring that to the table and show what that is. Something that can get pushed back, though, and be prepared for, is maybe the model home does not have the same level of upgrades that your home has. And so a lot of times what the builder is advertising is just their base price. And depending on the price point, which around this $400,000 price point, a lot of times in new construction, when someone's building, or even when a builder builds a spec house, they're putting about $30,000 to $50,000 in upgrades from that base model pricing. So that might be one of the reasons why there is a little bit of a discrepancy there as far as the base model and what the market value is, what the county is putting that market value at. So as far as the desirability rating, I'm not sure where you're getting that information, whether it's from Niche or niche.com. Something subjective like that. I'm not so sure that the appraisal review board would put a lot of weight into that. For the most part, they're looking at data, and they do have guidelines of things they have to go by. And something as, kind of touchy-feely as a desirability rating is just probably not something they would put a lot of weight on. Again, with all of this, it doesn't hurt if it supports your lowering in value to bring it down. You can try, but I could see a board pushing back on that last piece. Okay, next question. I'm not sure how accurate the prices are in the Zillow app, but it was indicating that the value of my house at the end of 22 was $550. So I'm assuming with this question, it was that $550 was less than what you were assessed for. So we're going to go off of that for this. Now, how accurate the prices are on the Zillow app. I am not aware of any appraisal review board using Zillow data in a protest to bring values down or to adjust values, because Zillow goes off of big data, and they're using an algorithm, and they are looking at current asking prices and time on market and all sorts of various things to determine a value. And if you look behind, kind of peel a few layers back, a lot of times there's a range. When you look at all these different valuation tools that exist, there can be huge swings in ranges as far as what they think the home could be priced at. And the reason this is so inaccurate for a state like Texas is because we're in what's called a non-disclosure state, meaning when you buy a house or you sell a house, the actual sales price is not public data. And so Zillow does not have access to the public data. They don't have access to the sales data because it's not public. It is only published if it's listed on the MLS. The sales data is only published on the MLS. So you have to be a realtor, have access to the MLS to be able to get actual sales comps. And so that's why I could see an appraisal review board pushing back on a Zillow valuation, because it is not using actual sales data. It's using an algorithm to try and come up with a best guess for a value. So sorry, I can't help you with the Zillow data on that. But you did ask for comps, and I provided those, so hopefully those help you. Okay, my last year's appraised value was $219,167. Will I still be able to lower it? Well, that depends. So it depends on what sales comps are available. I will say in most markets where I'm getting these requests, that is an incredibly low valuation, or at least an appraised value to get assessed on. And there are very few sales in the MLS too that would be any lower than that. Now, if you have not already filed your homestead exemption, go ahead and do that if this is your homestead. And there are some rules around that, and I made a whole nother video about homestead exemptions. But go ahead and file your homestead exemption if you qualify. And then that way, as far as capping your increase, you can only be taxed on a 10% increase year over year. So that will help it not go up too high year over year. And if the market crashes and prices go down, you can always push to bring the assessed value back down if there are sales to support that. Okay, next question. If I lower my market value with the appraisal district, will that affect my ability to sell my home for more if I want to sell it later this year? Absolutely not. So your assessed value with the appraisal district has absolutely nothing to do with what an appraisal or an appraiser that is hired by a buyer will appraise your house for. So the appraiser who is going to appraise your house for a buyer is going to look at actual sales data right around you. And they are going to take into a lot more things into consideration. They are going to go through the home, see, oh, you have wood floors everywhere, not carpet everywhere, and be able to put different values on things in way more detail than what the county will do. And it's pretty much general knowledge that there can be a wild swing between your property tax assessed value and your actual sales price. So if you're working with a realtor, or the seller's working with a realtor, or the buyer's working with a realtor, that is something that very rarely comes up. And then if it does, it's a very quick explanation that the two are not the same. So you do not have to worry about trying to fight for a lower value with taxes, that it might affect your ability to sell later and your list price then. Don't worry about it at all. If it were me, I would still fight to lower my taxes if I had the comps to do it. So no stress on that. Okay, I bought last year and my assessment is at my purchase price. Can I still get it lowered? Well, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, and it depends. So if it's at your purchase price, it could be said from the county that, hey, that's what it was last year. We're going to put it at that. But remember, the value of the property for the 2023 tax year is being determined as of January 1. So let's say you bought in June. And in fact, this actually happened with one of the requests that I got. They bought in June. And for a lot of submarkets, that was the peak. Sometimes it was April, sometimes it was May. Everybody kind of had a little bit of a different thing going on. But let's say you bought in June, and that was at the peak. And now at January 1, in Q4, the market stalled out for a lot of areas. And so we had prices go down. And in this one where I ran the report for this one homeowner, the market had gone down 10%. Now, there is a lot of seasonability. This is a seasonal thing, and market prices shift. So it's not like, the sky was falling. But there was a 10%, we could see on the averages, there was a 10% swing from when they bought at the peak to the end of last year. So if the goal of the appraisal district is to determine a value as of January 1, if it were me, I would argue that, hey, I bought at the peak, prices went down for the rest of the year, and now I want to be assessed on the average and look at all these other comps that did come in below where I purchased. Will they take it? I'm not sure. Again, like I've said, I've had different people respond different ways about how this has gone for them. But if it were me, I would try it. So as far as can you still get it lowered? No guarantees, but I would definitely try. If there are other sales comps showing lower purchase prices than what you bought yours for, I would definitely go for it. Okay, why is my form not showing me what I will actually pay in taxes? So the reason you don't know exactly what you've paid in taxes is the rates have not necessarily been set yet. So will they change wildly from what you paid last year as far as the rate? Probably not. But what they're doing right now is all they're doing is determining the value of the home, or the value of the property, so that when taxes are levied, when they are assessed, that's the value that's going to be assessed. So right now you're just getting a statement saying, hey, here's where we're assessing your property as far as a market value and appraised value and the assessed value. And then in October is when the actual bill comes out, and it says, okay, you remember we established what your property was valued at earlier in the year. Well, now we've got the bill, and this is now what you're going to pay, because we've got our tax rates all determined, because you can be paying taxes to the school, to a local hospital, to a community college, to a public improvement district, we have all sorts of different taxing entities here in Texas. Not all areas have the same taxing entities. Some have one or two, some have all of them. Fun things talking about taxes in Texas, But yeah, so you don't have an actual dollar amount of what you'll be paying until October when that bill comes out. Now, another little side note is, even though the bill comes out in October, you actually have October, November, December, and even the first part of January to pay that bill. And I believe it's not due if it's after January 31st, then you're late. Then you start getting penalized for not paying on time. So you still have about 4 months to pay that bill once you get it from the county. We purchased our land. Okay, next question. We purchased our land years ago and just completed our house construction this year. The new value is outrageous. What can we do? Okay, so this one can be a little tricky because what it sounds like to me is, land was for sale. They bought it, held on to it, maybe waited to find a builder, design plans, who knows what, and then finally built on it. And so depending on what was submitted to the county as far as plans to get permits and things like that, there's no telling what valuation the county has put on the development. So you'll notice on your tax statement you have two things. You have a land what they value the land at, and then what they value the improvements at. And for improvements, they're going to look at pools, if you have any garages or sheds or pergolas or any sort of improvements to the exterior of the property, they're going to add those into your assessment as improvements. So when they look at what has been done to the property, depending on what new construction is doing in the area, they may just take a blanket approach and say, okay, you built on 4,000 square feet. We see 4,000 square foot homes are selling at X. That's what we're putting on your house. Now, if it were me, and I don't have any proof or can't promise this sort of outcome, but if it were me, I would take my bills. If I worked with a GC, I would take that final statement of cost and say, hey, this is what it actually costs to build my property. So this is my improvement value. And then this is what I bought the land for. Now, if you've had the land for a few years and held on to it, because pretty much across the board, what I'm seeing with folks is that land values have gone up substantially. That one might be a harder one to fight, the land value. But at least for the improvement value, if you had construction bills and or even a loan on the property, or maybe you did a final appraisal, sometimes people will have a construction loan and then they'll get a permanent, like a regular mortgage, once it's all done, and they'll have to get a final appraisal done. So maybe you had a final appraisal done, and you can use that to show the value at the time that you got your certificate of occupancy or something like that. So essentially, if it were me, just taking my expenses, what I paid for things, and taking that as evidence to say, hey, this is what I really paid for it. This is what it really cost me. And then, of course, if there are comps to show, hey, new construction is actually selling at less per square foot, anything else I could provide, but definitely any records I have to show that I spent less is what I would send. Okay, is there any other way I can protest my value besides comps? So there are other ways you can protest your value besides just providing sales comps from last year. So one of the things, so I've already talked about the difference. We've got land, they're going to assess you at land, they're going to assess you at improvement. So when you go to fight your property, if you're trying to fight your value, and you notice that a lot of homes around you, maybe you're in an area with a lot of older homes that's transitioning, and a lot of the sales that happened last year were people that came in, put in new floors, new counters, new cabinets, all the things, redid everything on the inside and sold them, but you still have the original, laminate countertops and shag carpet everywhere, and all the things that came with the original house in the 70s. Well, I would take pictures of all of that and I would say, hey, appraisal review board, this is what my house looks like, and this is what these houses look like. As you can see, completely different product. So use that as evidence to show, like, hey, my house is not up to par with these. And then if you have foundation issues that need to be fixed, someone wrote in and said they've got termite issues that haven't been fixed. Anything that you have that you can show evidence to. So if you have invoices or estimates that you've gotten to show work needing to be done to bring down the value, or just pictures or statements. If you've got really bad foundation issues, maybe having a engineer come out and give an engineer report on the foundation to show that it's a problem. Or a lot of times foundation companies will come out and give you an assessment to the, how many piers you would need, how much it would cost you, and you could use that to maybe fight your taxes. So anything you could show to the appraisal review board that would challenge the finish of your property compared to the others that have actually sold. That would be something I would look at. Now, how do you know what those looked like on the inside? So if that home was listed for sale and the realtor did not take the pictures down, which a lot of times they do take the pictures down after it sells, but I have found that realtor.com seems to keep a lot of pictures on, even when they're not still on the MLS. Somehow, I don't know if there's I don't know how it works. That's all beyond my pay grade. But going to realtor.com and searching that address, a lot of times you can see the pictures of the inside of the house. And then I would print those out, print mine out, and do like a side-by-side to say, hey, here's what mine looks like. Here's what this one looks like. Another thing you can do is a lot of the property, county, oh my gosh, I can't even think. The tax districts will have a map that you can search. And so go to that map search, type in your address. And then what I would do is I would start clicking and seeing, like if I know my neighbor 2 doors down has a similarly sized house, I would go and look and see what the county is assessing their house for, see what they're assessing the improvement for, the land for. And I would want to make sure that we're lining up. And if I know that neighbor has done something, they've put in a pool, and I'm being taxed at the same amount they are, or assessed at the same amount they are, well, then I'm going to say, hey, I don't have that $30,000 improvement that they have. I should be a little less. So that's one thing too, when you're looking at land, sometimes it can be a little harder to find comps, just like basic from the MLS comps. But one thing you can do to go a step further is to go look at that map from the appraisal district's website and try and find people that have similar lot sizes to you and see how those lots are being assessed. I had one actually that reached out along a lake, hugging a lakefront. And so what I did was I looked in to see, okay, what are the lot sizes and what are those being assessed for? And sure enough, there were a lot of variances between how those lots were being assessed. So gave them the homework to say, okay, there are some differences. Go take a look at this, and then you can see if there's anything that would maybe support bringing your lot assessment down. So anyway, there are other ways to fight your property taxes. Another thing is you can call the appraisal district and ask them what has been working well. What does the appraisal review board want to see? That can be way more valuable to know exactly what will help you. They may say, we want to see this many comps, this type of stuff. So find out from them what they're looking for specifically. And that way you can show up prepared for your hearing with the documents that they want specifically. And then there was one last question, and it was, I'm hearing people say protesting doesn't work. Is it worth my time to do this? Well, I guess the first question is, how much is your time worth? And it depends on how much work you're willing to put in. It is a little bit of a process. Now, the initial protest, when you can do it online and you click a button and you upload a few documents and say what you think the value should be, that can be pretty quick. But if you then want to go in front of an appraisal review board, you have to schedule that. You're going to have to take time out of your workday, and you're going to have to collect all the information to help support bringing your assessed value down. So that's going to be a little legwork on your part. There are companies out there, and you can Google them, companies that will help you fight to protest your taxes. And I am not one of those. And so that's why I've said so many times, like, I'm not a professional, I'm not a consultant, I'm just a realtor giving comps and giving my personal opinion on all of this. So no guarantees on anything that I'm telling you. But there are companies that will do that for you. So if you have a huge discrepancy in what you think it should be, it might be worth it to you to reach out to those companies and see how they operate and what they can provide you as far as value for your time. So, but if it were me, and I did have a case to make to bring my assessed value down, then I most certainly would take the time to do it, because like I said at the very beginning of this, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And if you, now I've forgotten, I've been talking so much, what is it, 27 minutes straight I've been talking, oh my goodness. If at first you don't succeed, try again. So if you get declined on the first approach, then I would follow up and say, hey, I'd like to schedule time in front of the appraisal review board. So, all right, well, I just saw I have been talking for 27 minutes, and that is a really long time. So I hope you guys have found this valuable. This is the longest video I've ever made, but it is clear property taxes in Texas are a very big hot button issue right now. I've got other videos about homestead exemptions that I actually made years ago, but there's still relevant information, so be sure to check those out. If you haven't seen the property tax video for 2023 part 1, which I didn't even label it part 1 because I didn't know I was going to need a part 2. But the first one I posted a couple of weeks ago. Take a look at that because it talks more about what you can protest. And then if you haven't asked for them yet, you can get your comps. Go to texashometaxes.com. And one thing that also was not, that was a big surprise to me was I'm getting requests for comps all over the state of Texas, which is so cool. I'm so glad that I'm hopefully helping a lot of people providing information for them. But I can only get actual sales data from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is a pretty big area. So if you do request comps, I will try and find a realtor in your area who will provide those to you. So I am going to try and do that. And also I've gotten so many requests for comps. I was saying give me 7 days to turn those around. Now I'm asking for 7 to 10 days. And depending on how popular this video goes, I may have to ask for even more than that. Try not to take that long, but just know it's just me pulling these for you. And I don't just like shoot stuff out. I actually want to look, pay attention, and try and do a good job for you. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to comment on this video. I will try to keep up with those. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to this channel. All right. Thanks so much for staying tuned, you guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye now.